This is CNN Breaking News.
Jake Tapper here. Let's go back to the breaking news out of Turkey. What the prime minister there is calling an attempted uprising and what looks increasingly like an attempted coup. Barbara Starr is standing by at the Pentagon. Barbara, what's going on? It sounds as though the military might be trying to get control of the government in Turkey. Is that accurate?
Well, across Washington, agencies are scrambling to figure out exactly what is going on. It at least appears from some of the video coming out of Turkey that some Turkish forces, we don't know how high this goes, have attempted some kind of operation tonight in Turkey, both in the capital of Ankara and in Istanbul. Now, the implications are just enormous here. Whether this is a successful coup or not, we do not know. But if the Turkish government is not in full control of its military, this has massive security implications for NATO. Turkey is a member of NATO. It has massive security implications for the United States. U.S. warplanes fly out of southern Turkey every day on missions to bomb ISIS targets in Syria and Iraq. Tonight, we see some evidence that Turkish planes outside of their own government's control were also flying. You can't have U.S. planes flying in a country where the government is not in control of its military. If it is a coup, it will trigger legal restrictions. The U.S. military cannot be seen to support a coup. The U.S. military will have to get some kind of decision about whether it can even stay in Turkey. It raises questions about Turkey as a stable NATO partner. Turkey is on the southern flank of NATO. They control international shipping in and out of the Bosporus and north into the Black Sea. That is a government function in Turkey. It will have shipping implications. There are Turkish military air control radars that are part of NATO's southern flank. Very important for keeping watch on shipping traffic in the Mediterranean and possible movement of some of these refugee flows that have been so concerning out of Syria and North Africa, concerns about keeping an eye on possible terrorist activity. You know, you could just go on and on. Turkey is such a strategic location between the Middle East and Europe and North Africa. It is really in the crosshairs of the fight against ISIS, the fight against international terrorism. And tonight, the White House, the Pentagon, and NATO clearly are not sure exactly who is in charge in that country and whether there has been an attempted coup and whether it has been fully put down. Jake?
All right, Barbara Starr, stay with us. I want to bring in CNN Chief National Security Correspondent Jim Sciutto. Jim, this is potentially very significant news if the only Muslim-majority country in NATO and a country that the United States relies upon so much when it comes to the fight against ISIS, if there is, in fact, an attempted coup there. What are your sources telling you?
NATO member and on the front lines in the fight against ISIS. Turkey, of course, on the border with Syria. So events just in the last 5 minutes here. The Turkish military has now issued an announcement, widely reported in the Turkish media, that it has overthrown the government of President Erdogan. It says that it has detained the leadership of the government. So you have the military claiming it has taken over the country. Of course, earlier you had the Turkish PM calling this an attempted coup. He later backed off the word coup. He called it a mutiny, saying that some units, some groups within the military were attempting a coup, a mutiny, as he said, but that it would be put down. So you have competing narratives now. The prime minister, the existing government saying attempted coup, we will defeat it. You have the military claiming to have successfully taken over the government, and you have this enormous show of force. So the open question is the force we're seeing entirely from units disloyal to the government, or could some of them possibly be loyal to government? That's an issue now. What do U.S. officials know? I've spoken to officials in the White House, the State Department. It is early. They don't know the final word on this. I was just told that Secretary John Kerry, who is traveling in the region now, has been briefed on this. But right now, the U.S. government is still trying to assess the reports. One more thing I would say is when you get to the government of Erdogan, he's been a fairly divisive leader, popular leader. He's won multiple elections. But there are quarters in the country that are not comfortable with him, including the military, with a couple of things. One, he's taken the country in an Islamic direction more than previous leaders, which has faced some opposition. but also into an anti-democratic direction. At least that's what critics inside say. He's imprisoned journalists. He's shut down publications unfavorable to the government.
Shut down social media.
Shut down social media, apparently in the midst of this right now as well. Well, he hasn't done that, but apparently the coup takers have done that. He's arrested dissidents. This kind of thing. So you have opposition to him, some that's been very vocal. And historically, in Turkey, the military has been something of a self-appointed protector of democracy, that they have come in at times when they felt that the democracy is threatened, and the military's treated itself as the guarantor of democracy in the past. Of course, there are questions about having the military take over a democratically elected government. But right now, U.S. officials are trying to monitor what is a very fluid situation.
All right, Jim, stay here. I want to bring in freelance reporter Andrew Finkel, who's in Istanbul, Turkey. Andrew, we last spoke after the terrorist attack at the airport there. There are reports that state TV has been shut down. Can you confirm that? And what can you tell us?
I'm not watching state TV. I can't tell you that. But what I can tell you is that there have been incredible rumblings going on ahead of tonight's events. So although they have taken us by surprise, I won't deny that. Perhaps we should have been prepared. I mean, the background to all this is that Mr. Erdogan has been very consistent, very clever, very determined in trying to grab the nodes of power in Turkish society. He's moved against the press, he's moved against the courts, and he's was now apparently trying to move against the military itself. And we've had reports in the pro-government press in the last few days ahead of an event at the beginning of August in which it happens every year in the beginning of August when new military appointments are made. And we know that the government was very keen this particular August to weed out its opponents in the military and to put its men in place. So the fact that we don't know exactly what's happening now, but if there is this serious coup attempt going on now, it does make sense in the context of the military trying to retain its coherence, retain its integrity against the government's attempts this August to change the guard.
In general terms, when Erdogan has been caught between those who want him to be more secular, more democratic, more like Europe, and those who are more Islamist, to adhere more to Islamic law, and to be less secular and less westernized. In simple terms, on what side is the military?
Well, the military, I mean, that's one way of looking at Turkish politics, that Erdogan has this Islamic agenda, that the military have a secular agenda, and that the two are bound to clash. But another way of looking at it is that both want to control the nodes of power in Turkish society. And Mr. Erdogan, whether he's secular or whether he's Islamic, is very determined to get all the levers in his own hand. And, and he's been pretty successful in controlling institutions like even the judiciary. But obviously the military is the last bastion, the last resistance to his attempt to really control the entirety of Turkish society. And they clearly, some of them at least, have chosen this evening to fight back.
Andrew, stay with us. Jim, you just heard from a Turkish dissident. What are you hearing?
A Turkish dissident who provided me a rough translation of this statement coming in from the Turkish military, which is being widely reported now in Istanbul and beyond. It says that the military has taken over, that the military wants to have, quote, friendly relations with the world, and that this is intended to, quote, impose human rights and democracy, claiming that they're doing this to restore democracy to the country.
And as you've noted, Jim, this is not the first attempted coup in the history of Turkey, far from it.
It is not. In the past, the military has seen itself as the guarantor of democracy there when they felt that the elected government, the civilian government, has gone beyond its bounds. They have sometimes come in. Of course, there will be many there. I think Erdogan is a popularly elected leader. He's won multiple elections. So as you'd expect, there would be some who would disagree with that assessment of the military's role.
Barbara Starr at the Pentagon, let me ask you, Russia, obviously, we have yet to hear from them. where would they be allied in all of this?
Well, great question. I think Russia and Iran are going to be the two countries that are going to be eyeballing this situation tonight and over the next several days. The Russians clearly want to continue their military shipping and air access into Turkey. They moved down into the Black Sea through the Bosporus. They don't want any closure of that. They don't want any restrictions on their ability to move Russian military forces throughout that region and down into the Mediterranean. The Iranians also watching very carefully. What these countries want is stability from Turkey, and it's going to be questionable tonight if they have it, because now we are, perhaps a few hours into this situation, and still no one is exactly sure who is in charge and what really may be going on. I think Jim would agree, every U.S. government official, every NATO official we're calling is telling us we're monitoring it, we're watching, we don't have the final answers yet. That suggests that high-level Turkish government officials are not free, not available, or not able to give the reassurance to NATO, again, Turkey, a member of NATO, and the reassurance to the West about what is happening in Turkey tonight. It will be very interesting if the government in Turkey, as a NATO member, if the government feels that it is under some threat from this, if they were to ask for help from NATO, that would be unprecedented. I'm not at all sure how that would proceed. Unlikely perhaps, but we're finding ourselves tonight suddenly in a very unlikely situation with the real possibility that there is a military coup inside NATO. Jake?
Andrew Finkel, freelance journalist in Turkey. Let me ask you, you referenced just a few minutes ago, you said that there were rumblings about this, and you also mentioned that the timing might have something to do with the fact that new military officials take over in August. Did I hear you right?
That's correct, yes. I mean, there's a real, that the whole military hierarchy is reappointed at the beginning of August.
So this would be the last effort by the ones who are on their way out the door to carry out this coup, if in fact that's what's happening.
Well, certainly, if there, one explanation for this possible coup is that the military, who are very keen on maintaining the chain of command, on maintaining their own integrity, coherence, hierarchy, perceived that there was a threat, that the government was intent on appointing outsiders, people who, jumping the chain of command, jumping the hierarchy, was determined to get a hold of the military positions. And this might have been one reason or one explanation for why this has happened when it has happened.
And Andrew, there are competing claims right now as to who is actually in charge. The military is claiming they are in charge, but the government is as well.
And we'll know who's in charge when someone's in charge, I suppose. But we do know that the military are on the streets of major Turkish cities. And that they have been flyovers of the capital, that there are apparently, again, these are not things that I can confirm. There was reports of helicopter fire over the headquarters of national intelligence in Ankara, in the Turkish capital, which would be a sort of stronghold of the government. I mean, I've even heard reports that the water board authority in Istanbul had that there were tanks outside there. So, if there is a military, the Turkish military has conducted 3 coups in the past 30 years. Since 1960, I've lived through some of them. When they do this, they're very serious. They just don't, it's not just some soldier with a rifle. It's something that's well thought out and well planned.
Do we know where Erdogan is right now?
Well, apparently he's on holiday, some holiday in Bodrum on the Aegean coast in Turkey.
That's interesting timing. The State Department is just tweeted, quote, confirming media reports of gunshots and possible attempted uprising in Turkey. Remain vigilant, a warning to any Americans traveling in that country. Barbara, question right now about, obviously we've spent a lot of our coverage in the last day, week, month, year, 2 years, 3 years, talking about ISIS.